Welcome to the Why Not Today podcast, where we celebrate courage, determination, and the power of saying, why not today? I'm your host, Leslie Kane. And in each episode, we dive into inspiring stories of individuals who have taken bold steps, faced their fears, and embraced the possibility of today. From entrepreneurs to artists, dreamers to doers, we explore the moments when they said, enough waiting, why not today? Join me as we uncover the heartwarming, the audacious, and the transformative, whether it's pursuing a lifelong passion, overcoming obstacles, or simply choosing joy. Our guests share their journeys to inspire us all. I started this podcast in honor of my father, Patrick Kane, who often did say, why not today? And these episodes are purposely not edited because I want them to be a conversation, and just like the why not today message, just like a dog going by, that's okay. You know what? Just like the why not today message, we just need to do the thing, and it's not going to be perfect. We just need to start. And so remember, you're just one decision away from changing your life. And my guest today is Charlene Wheeless, and this is her second time. I think you're only the second person that's been on 2 episodes.
Oh, thank you.
An honor to have you again. And we talked, gosh, I think about this time last year.
Yeah, it probably was. Yeah.
And we kind of talked about your courage journey and starting your business and leaving corporate, and we talked about your book, which I hadn't read. So since I have read the book, and there's life that's changed in both of our worlds, and we're a year further. So and one of the reasons I wanted to have this episode is, as many of you know, I started a luncheon called Why Not Today Connects, and it's the 4th Thursday of the month in Reston, Virginia, if you're local. But Charlene is our guest speaker. It's coming up on the 23rd of May. So I thought it would be fun to just kind of have her share and a little bit of her story and courage, and kind of a precursor, and hopefully you will join us on the 23rd. So Charlene and I met through the chamber. You know, it's funny, I don't know if I mentioned this before. I distinctly remember, and I say this often, when I remember exactly where I was when I met people, then they're supposed to be in my life. And I remember we were in, I think it was the Westin next to the Sheraton.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember what event it was,
Mm-hmm.
but we were in round tables when I sat next to you. I didn't know who you were. I want to know her. So I'm grateful that I do, and we reconnected several times in other things. But why don't you share just a couple quick facts about you, or a little bit about you, not your whole courage story in your book and everything, and a fun fact about you, maybe something fun that happened.
Yeah. So, a little bit about me is I'm just out here, doing my journey. As you know, I was a corporate executive, and in corporate for 33 years, a corporate executive for a little over 20, and decided to transform my life, re-engineer my life about 4 years ago. And so here we are on this new journey, and really, my whole life, I guess if I wanted to sum it up, I'd say, why not today, right?
Exactly.
When you're looking at the things that you need to do to have the life you want and the life you love. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm out here living my purpose and making an impact and being as authentic as possible, which is why I did not put my dog away. I just didn't know the mail carrier was going to come.
That's okay. And mine's sleeping, so hopefully she'll stay asleep.
Right.
But that's okay. That's life.
Let's see, fun fact. I have a really loud standard poodle.
Okay.
Let's see, fun fact. Here's one. When my husband and I first met, which was now 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago, one of the first things we did, we met here, and one of the first things we did was we went to a KKK rally downtown.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, my husband, as you know, Leslie, is white. And we were reading the paper one morning, and we said, you know what? Every KKK rally needs an interracial couple. So let's go see what this is about. And that's what we did.
Wow. I bet that strengthen your relationship a little bit, to have that bond. Yeah. All right. You just went mute, Charlene.
I was telling my dog to be quiet with a clap.
Okay. Like, I saw your mouth moving, but you were.
Yeah, I was talking to her.
Okay.
Her name. So.
All right. So I love that, and that definitely took courage to do. But let's talk about, what is your definition of courage? And it's always fun to do this with the second guest, because it's maybe completely different.
Right. My definition of courage, and a lot of people will say this, is being afraid, and walking through the fear, doing it anyway. Right. And one of the things I often say to people, fear is really just an acronym for false evidence appearing real. And so courage is doing what you need to do for you in the midst of fear. Right. Walking through the fear. And of course, my life mantra is it's choice, not chance, that changes everything. So being willing to make the choice.
Love that. And that's the whole why not today message. We need to make the choice.
Right.
Somebody I talked to the other day and interviewed, her courage definition was more, doing it regardless and knowing it's going to be hard.
Right.
It's not going to be a walk in the park.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be hard.
Absolutely. Courage takes intentionality. And I think when we are our most afraid, we have to remember that we are being intentional about our choices and let that intentionality drive you because it is hard. It's scary, right? It's you don't know burn out. You just know how you feel. And that you need to do something different. And courage is doing that thing differently and not knowing how it's going to turn out, but trusting that you are on the right path.
Yeah. And you get that feeling in your gut.
Yes.
And probably since I know in the last year, I've kind of obviously interviewed more people. Now we're every week and we started every other week. So I've gotten a lot of people's stories and I've really found a formula for kind of that people have when you make that major pivotal move in your life, you have that moment of I've had enough or this is enough. And you remember where you were, what you're doing, how you felt, and you're almost like the line in the sand, like this is it. Did you remember when you left corporate America? Did you have a moment, a day, something that happened that you're like, I'm done?
I was coming off of a cancer, not just a cancer diagnosis, but a cancer treatment and a cancer journey. And, when I went back to work, I realized that after everything I had been through, which had been about 5 years, I wasn't the same person that I was before. And my defining moment was when I realized that I didn't want to be the person I was. At first I was fighting through trying to become her again. And then I realized, and yes, I was sitting at my desk and I was looking around my desk at all the papers and all the work that I had to do, the things that got me excited. And I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. This is an insane amount of work. And I had even asked someone on my staff, I said, who did all this work? This is a lot. And she said, you, Charlene. She says, this is what you do. And I thought, not anymore.
Nope, I'm done.
Not anymore. And I really felt like I was going to have a nervous breakdown trying to become this person that I no longer was. And I really felt like in my head, it was enough, enough was enough. And the thing I think, Leslie, is, I really believe in the somatic connection, the connection between your body and your mind. And I think my body had been telling me that I had enough way before my mind. And at that time, if I had known the somatic connection, I would have paid much more attention to what was going on inside my body. And I probably would have gotten to the decision sooner. But I also believe that we make those decisions when we're ready to make them.
Yep. And they come at the right time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Our body definitely tells us, and we do. And I talked to somebody last year and she was, as she say, practicing Reiki. And I'm like, what is that? And she's like, it's really energy. Do you feel people's energy? And I'm like, never thought about it. And as soon as I thought about it, I'm like, oh, absolutely. Like when you walk in a room and you're around people, you're like, okay, you're my person and you're not.
Right, exactly.
Somebody reached out to me to be on the podcast. And within 30 seconds, I was called to, I'm checking with people before I just put people on the podcast now. We do a preliminary call. And within 30 seconds, I'm like, yeah, I'm not exposing you to my people. You're not. But yeah, our bodies definitely tell us.
And there are people in our lives who give us energy and who steal our energy, right?
We pay attention to that.
Yes, and we absolutely, the people who give us energy just light you up, right? They teach you something, and it's just such a different experience.
Yeah, you walk out of a lunch or a coffee or a meeting or just walking by somebody and just feeling different and motivated.
Yes.
I know when we met, it was going to be maybe in your calendar invite, it was a half an hour and we were there a couple hours.
I know.
And then we followed each other to the store afterwards. So,
right. That's right. I do remember that.
And, it's interesting with this podcast, I have had, I have a toolbox full of tools from different people I've talked to and stories that I often relate. And I think your story I share a lot. And I think this conversation came about after we finished recording and we were talking about health insurance. And I made the leap to quit my job, 24 years ago. And I'm like, what are you going to do about health insurance? And it was definitely one of those pivotal, like, there's a better world out here. But I'm like, I'm going to pay for health insurance. And I remember you and I talked about that. And you're like, I had really good health insurance. And luckily, because you got very sick and your insurance needed to cover it because of the job they gave you the insurance.
Right.
We really need to think about our quality of life and what are we putting ourselves through?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of those things where, I had good health insurance. I had a good job. I had a job that maybe wasn't good for me. And if I hadn't had that job, I wouldn't have needed the health insurance.
Exactly, because you would have had a different lifestyle.
A completely different life. I mean, I'm thankful for my time there without a doubt, and in corporate. But I think we do have to stop and ask ourselves sometimes, at what cost?
Yeah.
Right. At what cost am I doing this? And at what cost to myself?
Right. We're missing time with friends and family and life and getting sick and the stress. And I was on a call the other day and they were talking about that, especially in the DC area, there's so many government employees and they all hate their job. They call it the golden handcuffs. And they're actually clocks you can get. They can be on your desk with a countdown to when you get to retire.
Oh my gosh.
Like, how scary is that? Like,
that's frightening.
I love what I do and I have no interest in retiring, because I could live my life and do these things and make a difference and connect with a lot of people and not, like my niece calls it, I guess, the Sunday scaries.
Right.
I don't know what week it is. It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah. I used to call it the Sunday blues, right? And it would just come across me on Sundays and I wouldn't even know it. And I would just start to get a little, for lack of a better word, a little bit depressed on Sunday, and that then set the tone for how I woke up on Monday. And I said, I can't do this. You get one life and we just can't do this. And that's not to say that every job is that way and that every environment is that way, but be somewhere that gives you the energy where you want to get up. It's not that every day is going to be perfect, but but you need to have more great days than bad days.
Yeah. Well, and I love who you're becoming. And I can just in looking behind you and if people watching this rather than listening, she has a beautiful balloon arch behind her.
Yeah.
And, if you think about your corporate days, would you have ever brought that balloon arch to your office?
Oh gosh, not in a million years. Maybe towards the end because I just didn't give a damn.
Right.
But it's things that you particularly in corporate, not to just pick on corporate, but there's so much about yourself that you have to either hide or apologize for, and I'm quirky and I'm not apologizing for it. I'm happy to explain my balloon arch and this weird mannequin I have behind me next to my grand piano, but I'm not going to take it away because, people might think that just looks a little odd,
Right.
This is just kind of authentically
who you are.
Me.
We need to be who we be.
Right.
I have my house. I love the beach and my house is very decorated. You see behind me. I think I mentioned this on an earlier podcast too, but it's who I am. And I had a friend come visit and she didn't mean to offend me, but she did greatly. She goes, you need one of those shows to come and totally redo your house. I was like, okay. She goes, yeah, you need it. Like, you're so successful and you need to have your house represent that. And I'm like, I don't need my house to represent success. You know, I know who I am and authentic. It's funny. I was actually just listening to a podcast this morning about money. And they were talking about people that have tons of money and buying those super duper fancy cars, design everything to show off, really have a lot of money. They're, they're showing.
Yeah. We all, it's funny, but, we all have, when you don't have money, we all have that quest for money, right? And then when you have money, you realize that other than, the creature comforts, it doesn't make you happy. It just makes sure that you look good while you're unhappy.
Yeah, this girl that was talking was saying in her 20s, she worked at a big Wall Street job in New York City. And she's making no money and buying everything designer. And, so she looked important, but.
Yeah. Well, we all rise to, the thing is that we rise to the amount of money that we make. Right. And so you're always kind of in the same position until something happens. And then you realize, I have enough. It's when you're climbing and you're in what my husband and I call your acquisition phase, enough is always a little bit more than what you've got. Right. And the reality is we all need to know what's enough. So for us, so that we can just go live our lives, right? And not be enslaved to, what is it my pastor used to say, buying things that you don't need with money that you don't have to impress people that you don't know.
You don't like.
Yeah. I always thought that was just such a great saying, such a great way to think about things.
Yeah. So it's been a year since we had the last recording. So you got another year under your belt with your business. Yeah. So what have you been doing differently? I know you've been promoting your book, and I've seen you out on social a little bit more, and I flying here and there and doing events. So tell us what you're doing, how you're sharing your message, and maybe a little teaser of what we're going to talk about at the lunch.
Sure. So it's been a pretty exciting year. One, I have a daughter getting married at the end of this year, so that's been fun. Getting prepared for. She gets married in October. But from a business perspective, I've really been leaning into to everything really. The executive coaching, of course, I still do that, and advisory work. I started a coaching cohort, actually, which is about, I do this now a couple of times a year. It's a 6-week program for women, and it's a cohort of 10 people. And so we go through some of the assessments, the emotional intelligence assessment, the advancing women leaders assessment, and other things. And we meet once a week virtually. So that has been really fun. And I've pulled that down to a much lower price point than my normal coaching fee to make it accessible. So that's been really, really great, and has, I don't know, I think I get as much out of it as the people who are in the cohort. And then I also started doing some coaching with younger people at what I call kind of my give back rate. And that's been great. And then on top of all that, I've still been doing the keynote speaking, and I still talk about choice, not chance. I still talk about courage. And I was getting so many questions around, well, we understand courage, we understand choice, but how do you get there? And so I created an empowerment model. It's called the SOAR empowerment model. And so I've been teaching that quite a bit and adding that into my keynotes as well. So it's been a really, a year of just more growth and development and certifications. And, I don't ever want to stop learning. So I'm always trying to learn and to lean into things. At some point where it's the right time, I do, and I know you and I have talked about this before, I do want to engage in retreats, right, to be able to really offer something that goes on for a couple of days where people can connect and just really have some, life affirming sessions and experiences.
There's definitely a need for that, and we need to circle back with that. And it's interesting talking about your coaching cohort, I'm
Mhm.
going to kick off at the luncheon a mastermind group that I'm going to
Oh,
do.
great. Uh-huh.
Called Unleash Your Inner Bravery.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so similar concept, but yeah, I think
Mhm.
we need to mastermind. We need to gather. We need to
Right.
encourage each other, learn from each other.
Absolutely. And, share our experiences and just as you said, to learn from one another and also to understand that we all have more in common than we do different.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so we really can help each other, just helping one another know that you're not alone, right?
Yeah,
So many times when we go through things, we think that we're alone. And when you hear that someone else has had the same struggle or the same challenge, it's helpful to you. And I'm also going to be re-releasing my book. Again, I'm adding a couple of new chapters to the book. It's time
cool.
for print anyway. So I thought I would add some new information into it that I've learned since I first wrote the book in
Right.
2021. Yeah.
Yeah, we're always definitely growing and changing. And I think one of the things I have found with the podcast is that people have told me is when listening to it, it gives them permission and hope and to say me too.
Right.
And so I'm really being a little more intentional with the conversations we're
Mhm.
having and how it can impact people's life instead of just a courage story. What are you doing? There was a young man I interviewed a couple months ago, and he was in a motorcycle accident and lost his leg. He woke up to have one leg.
Oh,
And when he got a prosthetic, and he's like, I want my kids to still think of me as Superman. And he's running and playing football and advocating too. And
right.
it's not going to lay down and stop living, which I think a lot
Yeah.
of people do. So giving people hope,
Mhm.
permission. I actually talked to somebody that the other day. I'm going to have Sharon Farrar.
Oh, yes, of course. I know Sharon quite
We're
well.
going to talk about her journey with her faith journey with her daughter fighting cancer.
With cancer,
And, yeah,
right.
but there's so many things that I think is going on in the background in people's world that they need courage to tackle and know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
always say everybody has a story and every story is worth hearing.
hmm
Every story is worth being told and every story is worth hearing. And it's when you hear those stories that people begin to share their vulnerability. And when people share their vulnerability, just powerful things happen,
yeah,
and I know it's scary. It was certainly scary for me, but it's just paid off in the quality of relationships that I have with people and to your side, like what you said, it gives people permission to also say, yes, me too. I've been feeling this way too.
yeah,
And that can be so powerful in community.
yeah. I've definitely found everybody's got a story, and people have a story behind the story.
Right. Right.
And the vulnerability piece is key. I had somebody that's very active in social media said, I do a virtual spa session with my Mary Kay business.
Mhm.
We go through and do charcoal
Right.
mask, eye patch. She's like, you need to interview your guests while they're doing the spa session.
Right.
Okay, that is vulnerability. And somebody else, I told that story, and they're like, you'd probably get a different interview when
Mhm.
people have a charcoal mask on their face, or eye patches, or they're stripped down,
Right.
you know, their
That's
base.
brilliant. That's
That
actually, yeah,
might try that. You might have to be a spa guest. So,
I'm all in. I'm all
okay,
in.
yay. So, you're going to be our speaker at the
Yeah.
luncheon,
Yes.
and we're going to talk about, I'm assuming, choice, not chance. And
We're going to talk about choice, not chance, and really being able to spot those pivotal moments that you have where you have to make a choice. And I'll certainly share, certain pieces in my life along my journey where I had to make those choices and how I recognized the choice that was in front of me, and then found the courage to take action. And the times that I had that the choice was in front of me and I didn't have the courage to take action and I left it to chance and how that turned out for me
right.
as well. And then also I'm looking forward to sharing my SOAR model, my SOAR empowerment model with the audience and hopefully with the attendees and hopefully having some back and forth and some Q&A and conversation. I try these days not to talk at people, but to speak with people. And so that's what I'm really looking forward to doing with your luncheon.
Yay. Well, we're excited to have you. So if you're
Yeah.
watching this podcast or listening to it and you haven't registered, make sure you register. And if you're listening to it later, you missed it, but maybe we'll do it again or have
Right.
follow up.
Right. And I might just have a couple of autographed copies of my book that I'll bring to you.
Ooh, yay. And I do have the link in the invite for the lunch if people want to order the books and have them.
Great. Great.
So those will work.
Yes, get them quickly because they are actually running out. So
Okay.
really
Well, before we close, I read the book in July. I was at the beach and read it, and then I pulled it out and started reading it again the other night, knowing you were going to be our speaker. But I went through and, of course, I highlighted and put tags.
I love it when people do that, Leslie. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I destroyed it. But the one chapter that I did make a note about a why not today, it says, it is a time to figure out our purpose, time to figure out what needs to change and then change it, time to be passionate about making sure that change unfolds, make it matter that you are here. Our time on this earth is finite. The days are long, but the years are short. Make them count. And when it comes to change and making change happen, I ask you, if not you, then who?
Yes.
So this one I saved and highlighted and starred, and so I'm grateful that I got to have this conversation and talk about it. So is there anything before we close that you'd encourage somebody? I know we talked a lot about encouraging, but one last encouragement for people to make a choice and not live their life by chance.
I always say that we are not born winners or losers. We are born choosers.
Ooh, I love that.
So make a choice, and don't leave it anything. Do not leave your life to chance, because it's choice, not chance, that changes everything.
So true. And just say, why not today?
Why not today?
So thank you again for being my guest, number 2, our second time.
Yes.
We're excited to have you at the luncheon, and thank you everybody for joining us on this inspiring journey. Remember, every day is an opportunity to take action, chase your dreams, and make a difference. And as Charlene said, make that choice. So why not today? Make sure you subscribe, share, and keep moving forward with the podcast. And until next time, stay motivated and keep making things happen as you say, why not today? Yes. Thanks, Charlene.
Oh, thank you, Leslie. I appreciate you.